I've made it no secret that Shadowbringers killed my love for the summoner, but in turn, it enkindled in me a hope for the future of the job, and my hopes were rewarded with this next evolution, and one that you'll get to go hands-on with here in Endwalker. Summoner has changed so much, it's a brand new job. If you've never played Summoner before, playing it now won't do you any favors. So it's the goal of this video to go into detail on how the Summoner plays, and how now, after all these years, it lives up to its name and its legacy within the world of Final Fantasy. Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Brian if you're new around here, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for watching this video. For this, you've unlocked the title Summoner Supreme. That's what you get for subscribing, by the way. Free titles to rep in-game and in the real world. So if you feel like this video earns your sub, let me know in the comments so I can officially welcome you to the channel, and I hope that you enjoy your new title. In this video, I'm going to focus on two key areas with a theme on how this job actually plays on a controller. The first part of the video is going to be going over the Summoner and how it plays in summary, and just as a side note, all the footage that you see here is pre-release footage. It has not undergone the final adjustments, and all content is actually subject to significant change. So don't worry or stress over any of the numbers or the potencies that you actually see here in this video. Summoner is a brand new job in Final Fantasy XIV, and many gamers, myself included, wondered how it would really fit in with the story and the world that we've come to know. And I think that Square Enix actually did a masterful job of having it fit with its story and its evolution over time. Now, while making it at the same time a brand new job that feels like it belongs, and at the same time also feels completely new and something that we've long hoped for all this time. I'm going to go over all the skills and also, more importantly, the traits here in just a little bit, but you'll notice that the Summoner has a higher level of focus than it did previously. Carbuncle is your summon, and yes, Summoner Eggies still exist, but at level 90, that's when this job is going to evolve them into their full versions, their full potential, and it's going to augment the Summoner skills in powerful ways. And that's still going to have you play the job as a priority-based caster. We'll go into more details about that when we get into the skills, but let's go ahead and continue on into the summary. The first thing that I noticed, and I really enjoyed, is actually when summoning, you're going to have charges that each summon is going to stack onto your abilities. This is hugely helpful because it actually allows you to take full advantage of your summons and their augmented abilities. So for example, if there's a phase change or the boss goes to be invulnerable, you're not left wasting any of your summon. It's all going to be functional to you. Now, it is critical to be aware that even though you can sit on your summons charges, you don't want to spend too much time doing that, as your demi summons, Bahamut and Phoenix, are still refreshing and being ready to be summoned themselves and do their part. So summoning them actually refreshes your summons in the first place. So you're going to be bringing in summons all the time. And honestly, at the end of the day, it feels fantastic. So you can actually start this whole process over and over and over again. And one thing that's really important to understand is that if there really is no set order in which that your summons, you want to bring them out. It really is going to come down to that priority. Do you need to do Ifrit first, or do you want to focus in on Garuda or Titan? Each one's going to have their advantages and disadvantages. Now, before I go into their advantages and disadvantages, as a side note, as a controller player, somebody who spent about 2 to 3 months focusing in on the Shadowbringer Summoner to try and really get it to function well on a controller, I can tell you hands down, it was so easy to step into this job on controller. It doesn't lose any of its identity in how you play it. It just feels very well thought out, very intelligent, and I couldn't be happier with the overall result. Now, onto the 3 summons themselves. Ifrit is going to get 2 charges, and it ends up having a longer cast time, but it packs a bigger punch. Also at level 90, you're going to get that dash in and smack. It looks really cool. It feels really good to execute. The concerns I have, especially when it comes to Ifrit, is that, well, you're really up close and personal with the boss, which is not necessarily where you want to be as a caster, as somebody who's typically at a range. So having this gap closer, I think, is an important ability, but you want to then consider having at least some form of speed cast, either the swift cast Ruin 3, or you could obviously summon Garuda, or you could summon Titan, so that you actually have all that mobility. And on that note, Titan turns your abilities into instant cast spells. This gives you extreme movement ability, extreme mobility. So if you think about kind of pairing those two together, you could dash in, and then you could easily move back out while still casting and not losing any downtime on the summoner. Now, Gerudo also gives you that instacast with one of their abilities that gets modified, while the other one does have a cast time, and it feels really good having true identity in your summons themselves. They don't feel like just carbon copy, like red, yellow, green, summons that just kind of pop up. They actually have some level of identity, and I think that's going to play in with the overall function of how the summoner works together in the first place. Now, from here, I'm going to talk about managing your off the global cooldown damage abilities, and this is using your energy drain or your siphon, and this is going to actually help you proc your Ruin 4 ability, which is now actually a functional AoE spell that packs quite a punch. At its core, Summoner is everything that I personally have hoped for, and as a controller player, it really already feels so much better and more focused than ever before. Now that we've gotten the basics in place, I want to dive specifically into the skills themselves, and please forgive me if I actually read a word wrong. I'll do my best, but I do get tripped up from time to time, especially in the world of Final Fantasy. It isn't intentional after all, but we'll jump into the traits. So hopefully we're going to give you the best understanding of how Summoner evolves on its way to level 90. So now that we're moving into the skills, just note that I want to kind of preface this with, don't worry about potencies. Any and all of this can change. We said that at the top of the video, but this is for informational purposes to kind of pre-game it and get a good idea of what you might want to do. So feel free to theory craft, but at the end of the day, so many things are changing behind the scenes that you're just going to have to go hands-on to get a real true feel. I am looking forward to kind of y'all's theory crafting on rotations and different abilities and more, so feel free to sound and share those in the comments, especially if you created your own spreadsheet and documents and videos. Please send them to me. I'd love to watch them, and we can continue this conversation all the way up to Endwalker. But let's go ahead and dive into the skills themselves. Ruin, this should be similar. Like this is going to feel very right at home for you right away. This is your level 1 spell. It's going to have a potency of 160. The cast time on it's pretty quick at 1.45 seconds. Now, all of these skills are obviously taken in a level 90 job, so these are going to be taken into any account of the stats and things like that that have been applied to you. We'll jump into the traits again, like I said, right after that. Summon Carbuncle is going to summon Carbuncle by your side. I mean, that's pretty simple and basic. Learned at level 2. At the gameplay time, Carbuncle just stood there, was not doing any auto attack whatsoever. We do not know if that is the full plan for Carbuncle, but at the time, the only way that they really actually did anything was with their 2 abilities. The first of which is Radiant Aegis. This is going to have you actually execute this. It's going to create a barrier around yourself that absorbs damage totaling 20% of your maximum HP, and that barrier is going to last 30 seconds, and you do get 2 charges of this, and you can only use this ability when Carbuncle is out. Thus, Bahamut, Phoenix, any of your other summons, this is not going to be available to you while that's happening. So just note there is limitations to using these abilities. Now you still have Physic. This is going to act as your 400 potency cure. Nothing really has changed that much there. Aether Charge. This is really where you're going to start seeing at level 6 the summoner really identifying itself very early. This kind of think of what Dreadwyrm Trance used to be, and this is essentially the pre-version of that. So Aether Charge grants you Aether Charge, increasing your potency of Ruin and Ruin 2 by 50 and Outburst by 20. Outburst being your AoE spell. It's going to last for 15 seconds, and it's also going to grant you Ruby Arcanium, Topaz Arcanium, and Emerald Arcanium. This is going to be playing into your summoner rotations. And so first we have Summon Ruby. Summon Ruby Carbuncle is going to order it to actually execute Glittering Ruby, and the effect of Glittering Ruby is it's going to rush your target and deal fire damage with a potency of 300. It also is going to grant you 2 additional stacks of Fire Attunement, and your Fire Attunement effect means that Gemshine and Precious Brilliance are going to become fire aspected, and we'll talk more about that here just in a second. This is going to last for 30 seconds as well. It cannot be executed, this Summoning Ruby, while under Earth Attunement or Wind Attunement, and it can only be executed under the effect of Fire Arcanium, and Carbuncle has to be summoned in order for that to function. Also at level 6 you get Gemshine. This is going to be able to allow you to channel the energies of your active elemental attunement into your attack. This is what you see happening on screen where the summoner's ability becomes augmented. Gemshine evolves into whatever your current summon is based off of your attunement. So obviously Ruby is going to give you fire, and that's going to have you deal fire damage to a single target. Earth Attunement is going to have you deal earth damage to a single target, and Wind Attunement is going to have you deal wind damage to a single target. Also see here where it talks about Gemshine and Precious Brilliance. Precious Brilliance is the AoE version of Gem Shine, and you're going to earn that at a later level. Fester, this is now, since there's no dots on the summoner, this is just a 300 potency off the global cooldown. And the reason why you want to continue to fester, obviously outside the damage itself, but you want to be using those charges, so that way when you refresh them, you're going to get that free ruin 4 proc down the road with energy drain or siphon. So energy drain still exists, deals damage with a potency of 200. It's going to grant you Aether Flow 2, and it also grants you further ruin, and that's going to last you for 60 seconds. The fact that you only get 1 stack of further ruin outside of 4 makes further ruin, or essentially ruin 4, feel way more impactful into what you're focusing in on as a summoner. Resurrection, which Yoshi P said made it by the skin of its teeth, and Endwalker still exists, allowing you to resurrect a target in a weakened state. Summon Topaz. This is learned actually at level 15. Summons your Topaz Carbuncle and it orders it to execute Glittering Topaz. This is going to have it rush the target and deal earth damage with a potency of 400, and it's going to grant you 4 stacks of Earth Attunement. Earth Attunement's effect is going to affect Gem Shine and Precious Brilliance, and they all become Earth aspected for 30 seconds, and it cannot be executed under Fire Attunement, Wind Attunement, or, and they can only be executed under the effect of Earth Arcanium, and your Carbuncle has to be summoned. You also then learn at level 22, Summon Emerald. This is going to obviously allow you to deal wind damage with a potency of 400 with Glittering Emerald in this case. Additional effect is going to be 4 stacks of Wind Attunement, and then again, Gem Shine and Precious Brilliance are going to become wind aspected. Cannot be executed under fire or earth, and can only be executed with wind, and Carbuncle is summoned. Outburst level 26. This is where you're going to get your unaspected damage with a potency of 100 to your target and all enemies nearby it. Here at level 26, you also learned Precious Brilliance. This is going to channel the energies of your active elemental attunement into attack to multiple enemies, dealing fire to a target and all enemies nearby it, dealing earth, and dealing wind damage accordingly. Ruin 2 is going to deal unaspected damage with a potency of 270. You'll notice Ruin 2 no longer is instacast in this case. That is because Ruin 1 will evolve into Ruin 2, which will evolve into Ruin 3, making it also a little bit awkward if you are a scholar, and we'll cover that in my scholar video here on the channel. So just kind of keep it locked here for that. Then at level 30, kind of in the way of now you're unlocking your job, the official summoner, you get Summon Everett. This is going to summon Everett Eggy, and it orders it to execute Inferno. And the effect of that is going to rush forward and deal fire damage to all enemies in a cone with a potency of 600 for the first enemy and 60% less for all remaining enemies. And still, you're going to get your 2 stacks of Fire Attunement. Gem Shine and Precious Brilliance are going to become fire aspected. It's also going to grant you Ifrit's Favor. The effect of Ifrit Favor ends upon execution of a certain summoner action. And we'll cover that here in just a second. And just like before, it's going to have the same requirements regarding Earth, Wind, and Carbuncle being summoned to make sure that it functions. Now, at level 35, you get Summon Titan. This is going to allow you to summon your Titan Eggy and order it to execute Earth and Fury. This is going to rush forward and deal earth damage to all nearby enemies with a potency of 600 for the first enemy and 60% less for all remaining. You're going to get your 4 stacks of Earth Attunement, affecting Gem Shine and Precious Brilliance, and the same conditions to summon it are in effect. Then at level 40, you're going to get Pain Flare. This is going to deal unaspected damage with a potency of 150 to the target and all enemies nearby it. And then at level 45, you're going to get Summon Garuda. This is going to give you Aerial Blast. This is going to deal damage to target and all enemies nearby with a potency of 600 for the first and 60% less for all remaining enemies. It's going to give you 4 stacks of Wind Attunement, which will impact Gem Shine and Precious Brilliance, and it's also going to grant you Garuda's Favor. All right, then you have Energy Siphon at level 52. Deal unaspected damage with a potency of 100 to the target and all enemies nearby it, granting you Aether Flow 2 and a charge of further ruin. Then you have Ruin 3. The evolution is complete now with Ruin 3, dealing unaspected damage with a potency of 310. Honestly, playing it with all the different summons, I didn't really find myself doing a lot of Ruin 3. So at the end of the day, I find it going to be more situational or paired with Swiftcast so that you can have an additional fast cast whenever you need to get out of dodge. But pay attention, Ruin 3 does still pack a punch. Then you've got Dreadwyrm Trance. This is where you're going to go into your Dreadwyrm Trance, and it changes Ruin 3 to Astral Impulse and Outburst to Astral Flare. So you'll see that Ruin itself is upgraded, and thus it changes its impact here. It also is going to grant you Ruby Arcanium, Topaz Arcanium, and Emerald Arcanium. And in the trade section, you'll actually see this is the evolution of Aether Charge. So Aether Charge becomes Dreadwyrm Trance, and so on and so forth. So that's going to be a key aspect into how the overall job plays. So then we go into Astral Flow. This is going to channel the energies of your active trance or elemental favor to perform one of several actions. Your Dreadwyrm Trance effect is going to change into Death Flare. Your Firebird Trance effect is going to be Rekindle. Ifrit's Favor effect is going to change to Crimson Cyclone. Titan's Favor is going to change to Mountain Buster, and Garuda's Favor is going to change to Slipstream. Ruin 4 has got a potency here of 430, and it's dealing unexpected damage to a target and all enemies nearby, with the first enemy taking the full 430 and 60% less for remaining enemies. And it can only be actually executed under the effect of Further Ruin. You'll notice it's instacast, which is really handy. So this is another one that pair really well with your Ifrit gap closing to have that instacast to be able to kind of get out when needed. Then you have Searing Light. This is learned at level 66. This is going to order your Carbuncle to execute Searing Light, which is going to increase damage dealt by self and nearby party members by 3%. So some nice damage up utility. Obviously, it's still at the 120-second mark here in this case, so you can use this every 2 minutes. Very nice at the end of the day. But again, this is going to only be executable when Carbuncle is out. So any of your Demi Summons or Ifrit, Garuda, and Titan are not going to allow you to execute this. So just kind of be paying attention to your overall rotation, which will probably be feeling around a 2-minute mark as well. Then you've got Summon Bahamut. This is going to be where you enter Dreadwyrm Trance and it actually summons Demi Bahamut into 5 by your side. Demi Bahamut will execute Worm Wave automatically on the targets being attacked by you after summoning, and that's going to last for 20 seconds. You also change Ruin 3 to Astral Impulse and Tri-Disaster into Astral Flare. Additional effect is going to grant your Ruby Arcanium, Topaz Arcanium, and your Emerald Arcanium, and it can only be summoned while in combat and Carbuncle is out and summoned. Then you have Enkindle Bahamut. This is going to order Demi Bahamut to execute Akmorn. This is going to deal unexpected damage to the target and all enemies nearby it, with a potency of 650 for the first enemy and 60% less for all remaining enemies. Then you've got Tri-Disaster. Deals unexpected damage with a potency of 120 to all targets and all enemies nearby it. And Tri-Disaster is an upgrade from Outburst. So note that this is still an evolution skill now. It is no longer the way that you used to expect it in Shadowbringers. Then you have Summon Ifrit 2. This is going to summon Ruby Ifrit in order to execute Inferno. So when you see Summon Ifrit 2, this is the big version. This is their full version that you get to bring by your side. The fire damage is for the target and all enemies nearby is going to hit with a potency of 700 for the first and 60% less for all remaining enemies, and it's going to grant you 2 stacks of Fire Attunement, thus affecting Gemshine and Precious Brilliance. It's going to also grant Ifrit's Favor, and Ifrit's Favor is going to end upon executing that specific action that we covered here just a little bit ago. Titan as well, in this case, summons Titan 2. It's dealing a potency of 700 with 60% less fall-ups and getting 4 stacks of Earth Attunement, which affects Gemshine and Precious Brilliance, and the same conditions for it are applied. And then you have Summon Garuda 2. This is going to allow you to summon Garuda with 700 for the first enemy and 60% less for the fall off, granting you 4 stacks of Wind Attunement and also affecting Garuda's Favor upon you. Now, if we go into more of these abilities that upgrade and change, you have Astral Impulse. This is going to deal unexpected damage with a potency of 430, and it can only be executed while in Dreadwyrm Trance. Instacast, so those summons, those trances, also augment how your summoner plays, thus giving it some movement and a lot of ability there. You have Astral Flare. This is going to deal unexpected damage with a potency of 180 to the target and all enemies nearby. And you have Death Flare. This is going to deal unexpected damage to the target and all enemies nearby with a potency of 500 for the first and 60% less for all remaining enemies. Then you've got Worm Wave. This is what Bahamut's doing. This is can only be deals unexpected damage with a potency of 150 and can only be executed when Demi Bahamut is summoned. You also have Akmorn. Deal unexpected damage to the target and all enemies nearby with a potency of 650 for the first, with 60% less for all remaining enemies. Now we get into the right spells. First you have Ruby Right. This is going to deal fire damage with a potency of 430. It's going to cost you 1 point of fire attunement. Then you have Topaz Right. Deals earth damage with a potency of 330, and it's going to grants Titans a favor effect, and it's going to cost you your earth attunement cost as well. This is instant, and then you see Ruby Right is going to have a 2.7 second cast time. Emerald Rite is an instacast and it's going to deal wind damage with a potency of 230. So if you notice here, Ifrit's got the biggest hit with 430, then you have Topaz Rite with 330, and then finally Garuda with 230. That's how the Rite spells are functioning. Under Phoenix, you got Fountain of Fire. This is going to deal fire damage with a potency of 430, and it can only be executed while under the effect of Firebird Trance. You still have Brand of Purgatory. This is going to deal fire damage with a potency of 180 to the target, and all enemies nearby can only be executed under the effect of Firebird Trance. Then you also have Summon Phoenix. This is going to where you enter into Firebird Trance and summons your Demi Phoenix to fight by your side. Demi Phoenix is going to execute Scarlet Flame automatically when the targets are attacked by you and after summoning, and it's going to last for 20 seconds. This will change Ruin 3 to Fountain of Fire and Try Disaster to Brand of Purgatory. It's going to give you the additional effect of refreshing your summons Ruby, Topaz, and Emerald. Then you have Everlasting Flight. This is going to gradually restore your own HP and the HP of all nearby party members for the next 21 seconds. And then you have Rekindle. This is going to restore your own or a target party member's HP. So this is Rekindle is acting as a free 200 potency cure, and the additional effect is Rekindle will actually grant itself kind of a little buff here on the target that's going to last for 30 seconds. That effect being that a healing over time when your HP actually falls below 50% or upon the effect's duration expiration. So the duration is going to last for 30 seconds. If they fall below 50%, you're going to get another cure potency with a 15-second refresh on that. A nice little, healing over time, ability. Not just for you, but you can also apply Rekindle to another party member. So putting this on the tank in a way is acting like EXO over on the Scholar to a certain degree. And so if they don't fall below 50%, after 30 seconds, it will start healing over time in that regards. You also have Scarlet Flame. This is going to deal fire damage with a potency of 150 with Demi Phoenix. You have also Enkindle Phoenix. It's going to have Phoenix execute Revelation, and the effects here is going to deal fire damage to the target and all enemies nearby with a potency of 650 for the first and 60% less for all remaining enemies. And this is going to replace Enkindle Bahamut while Demi Phoenix is actually summoned. Here's Revelation, deals fire damage to the target and all enemies nearby. So now we get into the catastrophe spells. These are the AoE versions of Precious Brilliance. This is what happens when Precious Brilliance gets aspected. There we go. Got it. Third try into the element. So Ruby Catastrophe is going to be a potency of 180 to the target and all enemies nearby. This does have a cast time for Ruby Catastrophe. Topaz Catastrophe is instant, and it's going to deal 140 potency to the target and all enemies nearby it. It's also going to grant you Titan's Favor, which is going to be important here in a second. Then you have Emerald Catastrophe, deals wind damage with a potency of 100 to the target and all enemies nearby it. It's going to give you one cost. All these function as one cost of your attunement cost. Then you've got Crimson Cyclone. This is going to be where you rush forward and deliver a fire attack with a target and all enemies nearby it with a potency of 430 for the first and 65% less for all remaining enemies. This can only be executed when you have Ifrit's Favor on. Crimson Strike is going to deal fire damage to the target and all enemies nearby with a potency of 430 and to the first enemy and 65% less. So this is a combo action ability comboing off of Crimson Cyclone. So you get two big hits right there with Ifrit. Then under Titan, you get Mountain Buster. This is going to deal earth damage to the target and all enemies nearby it with a potency of 150 for the first and 70% less for all remaining enemies. And this can only be executed under Titan's Favor. Then you have Slipstream. This is a spell. This is going to have almost a 3-second cast time. So you will fill this with Garuda because you're going to be used to instant, but you're going to find that Slipstream does have a cast time. This deals wind damage to the target and all enemies nearby it with a potency of 430 for the first and 65% for the less. It's going to create a windstorm centering around the target, dealing damage to any enemies who actually enter it with a potency of 30, and that's going to last for 12 seconds and can only be executed under the effect of Garuda's Favor. Radiant Aegis, this is where that barrier spell, this is the pet ability, and Searing Light is that pet ability that's specific, that's going to give you that 3% buff to you and nearby party members. And those are the skills. So now I think it's time that we just naturally roll into the traits so that you can see how these skills evolve over time and at what levels these changes are going to occur. Enhanced Aether Charge grants Ruby Arcanium and Topaz Arcanium upon executing Aether Charge at level 15. Enhanced Aether Charge 2 at level 22 is going to give you Ruby, Topaz, and Emerald. And then Aether Charge Mastery is going to upgrade Aether Charge into Dreadwyrm Trance at level 58. Now you get enhanced Dreadwyrm Trance at level 70, and this is going to take Dreadwyrm Trance and actually turn it into Summon Bahamut. All right, then from what you've probably come to expect, these really haven't changed much from the originals. Maim and Mend at level 20, it's going to increase your HP and damage base abilities by 10%. And then you have Maim and Mend 2, which is going to increase base action damage of HP restored by 30%, also increases base damage and HP restoration of your pet by 30%. Ruin Mastery, this is going to upgrade Ruin to Ruin 2. Ruin Mastery 2, it takes you from Ruin 2 to Ruin 3. Ruin Mastery 3 is going to enhance Gem Shine according to your current Elemental Attunement, thus essentially Fire Attunement upgrades to Ruby Right, Earth Attunement upgrades to Topaz Right, and Wind Attunement upgrades to Emerald Right at level 72. And your masteries for Ruin start at level 30 and then at level 54. So at level 54, you'll have Ruin 3, and then from 30 to 54, you'll have Ruin 2. Then we jump into Ruin Mastery 4. This is going to increase the potency of Ruin to 310, Ruby Right to 430, Topaz Right to 330, and Emerald Right to 230. So this then brings us to Outburst Mastery. This is going to upgrade your Outburst to Tri-Disaster at level 74. Outburst Mastery 2 is going to enhance Precious Brilliance according to your current Elemental Attunement. This is where you get those Catastrophe abilities from Ruby, Topaz, and Emerald at level 82. Ruby Summon Mastery is going to upgrade your Ruby Summon to Ifrit, and Topaz Summoning Mastery is going to upgrade your Summon Topaz into Titan, and just accordingly, Emerald is going to upgrade your Emerald into Garuda. Enhanced Summon Bahamut is going to upgrade Summon Bahamut into Summon Phoenix at level 80, and Enhanced Energy Siphon is going to grant further ruin upon executing Energy Drain or Energy Siphon. A Kindle, in this case as a trait, is going to enhance the signature attack of summons, upgrading Ifrit's Burning Strike to Inferno, Titan's Rocks Buster to Earth and Fury, and Garuda's Aerial Slash to Aerial Blast at level 50. Elemental Mastery is going to grant Ifrit's favor upon executing Summon Ifrit, Titan's favor upon executing Topaz Right, and Garuda's favor upon executing Summon Garuda. It's going to enhance Astral Flow according to your current elemental favor, which is going to take Ifrit's favor upgrade into Crimson Cyclone, Titan's into Mountain Buster, and Garuda's into Slipstream at level 86. Enhanced Brilliant Eggies is going to allow the accumulation of charges for consecutive uses of Brilliant Eggies with a maximum of 2 charges at level 88. And then you have Ascended Summoning, upgrades Summon Ifrit to Ifrit 2, Summon Titan to Titan 2, and Summon Garuda to Garuda 2 at level 90, thus completing the full circle of Summoner. This now brings us to the conclusion of this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that it got you some information. Hopefully, more than anything else, got you as excited as I am for Endwalker. It's not that much longer to wait, and if you've been waiting like me for, I hesitate using the word proper summoner, but it really feels like it's a proper version of what summoner should be in Final Fantasy XIV. That honestly, it plays great, it feels great, and I couldn't be more excited. And it was really a hard challenge to step away from summoner and play the other job. So the end of the day, if you've been following my content and channels for a while, I've stated before that I'm going to be working on Sage and Reaper through the Endwalker story, and that doesn't change. But I'm going right to Summoner after I finish leveling the 2 new jobs, so that way I can get you updated controller guides on those here on this channel and over at Work the Game. That's going to be it for this video, guys. Like it if you liked it. Don't like it if you didn't. Leave me a comment if you made it all the way to the end saying I'm going Summoner, or I'm so happy for Summoners. Just mention Summoner in some way. You could say Summoner, Summoner, somebody. Yeah, Summoner, somebody. That'd be really cool. That will be really confusing to anybody who doesn't make it to the end of this video, but regardless, I always do get a chuckle out of you guys. I appreciate your support, appreciate your comments, your feedback, and your questions are all welcome. Sound off, and I look forward to having the conversation with you as we get ready to gear into Endwalker. But for Ginger Prime, my name's Brian. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you have a great day, and I hope to see you in my next video. But until then, take care.